Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, episode 388, recorded live Wednesday, May 9th, 2018. And I am Todd of Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast. So speaking of the podcast, we always start out with production notes so that we can tell everybody what a great job we do producing this thing. And I think I may have set another world record last week for shortest production time of a podcast. I think it was out like Friday or Thursday afternoon or something. And that was with something that I did. So it must have been Friday because it would have been Thursday. But I was feeling particularly impish and mischievous. And I broke YouTube Thursday afternoon. And I did that. It spited me because I was not able to upload the podcast to YouTube. And more importantly, it spited Shane because he was trying to upload an actual PowerApps video to his channel. And I broke YouTube and he couldn't do it. So it was all worth it for me.
Yeah, it was always very rude. I mean, the whole creator side of YouTube went down. I never really saw them say, oops, our bad, or, we know what happened. They're just like, what do you mean YouTube was down? We were busy watching cat videos over here on the consumer side. What do we care about the creator side? So
I'm with you. It was really weird. So I've got a bookmark in my browser for the creator stuff, and then obviously I can go into my browser and do it. And I clicked the bookmark for the creator stuff, and I got the monkey. They've got a very funny 500 error page, but then I could go to YouTube and find all my favorite sneezing panda videos and cats knocking stuff off of dressers. So I guess it's good if it's going to break. I prefer that it break that way.
I'm with you. It's if you take away pandas and kitties, I mean, what is the point of life?
I wouldn't need any internet connection. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and we're going to talk about this later, but he was talking about cord cutting and his internet connection and all that, and he said, he has to get better internet. And I said, given the choice between having internet and clean water, I would choose internet. I can get on the internet and order water. I mean, I can make this all work. But if at my house I had to choose between rock solid internet and clean water, I picked the internet.
Yeah, I wonder if the kids these days, when they do the whole, what would you take if you were stuck on a deserted island, right? I mean, do they just assume that the deserted island comes with internet? I mean, do they think through that whole story anymore?
I would imagine it would have to. Man, that would. So we got that out. Shane and I think we were talking before we went live. Last week I mentioned that I'd submitted us to TuneIn, which is another one of the great podcasting aggregate places. And I think it's tunein.com or tuneinradio.com. I really should have looked that up. Tunein.com. So they've got all kinds of radio stations and podcasts and all that. And we are on there now. So I know a lot of people use that. That is significant because that is the service that Tesla uses to promote podcasts to their cars. We are not there yet. Apparently, Shane has checked it, and we do not show up in your Tesla yet. So write your congressman, get on there, make this travesty stop. But for now, you can go to tunein.com and search for either of our names or whatever, and you can watch it there.
Yeah, I mean, why wasn't that brought up on the investor call, right? They had the call after the earnings report. I mean, that seems like the type of stuff that those guys should be asking if they were serious journalists.
Well, I assume that's why Elon hung up on they were starting to bring these kind of things out. And he's like, I have no excuse for not getting Todd and Shane's podcast on the Tesla. And he just hung up. He couldn't even bear the embarrassment.
Yeah. And if you guys missed that, it wasn't in the show notes. But if you ever want to hear how those type of conversations should go, you should listen to Elon, where he's just like, I don't care. I don't have to answer your questions. He was about as rude to those people as humanly possible, which never happens, right? Because you always get CEOs, they're like, thanks for that great question. I'm not going to answer it, but I'm going to talk for 30 seconds to a minute so you forget about what the question was and then move on.
I'm going to pivot.
Oh, but yeah, it's kudos to him. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it was funny. So that is a huge thing. Like, nobody does that. They always kiss the analyst's butt and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, no, it's a dumb question. I'm going to hang up on you guys and go talk to somebody else. And he did, which was hysterical. But then there was another article that came out about the NTSB investigating that crash with the X where the guy was killed. And apparently part of that thing breaking down was Elon was on the phone with the NTSB discussing this. He's like, I'm tired of this crap, and just hung up on them and walked off.
Well, yeah, because they were doing like a joint investigation, and then Tesla released a bunch of information from the joint investigation they weren't authorized to release. And the TSB's like, oh, well, we can't work with you guys anymore. And he does what he wants, and God bless him.
So funny. So go to your folks, go to government, get our podcast on your Tesla. And again, we're in Google Play, we're in iTunes. if you go to any of these platforms and consume our podcast from there, please rate us. And by all means, rate us whatever the highest score is: 5 stars, 2 thumbs up, three red pandas, whatever it is that do that. We appreciate that. It feeds our ego, and Lord knows we need that. And then if there's any other platforms that our podcast does not show up on that you would like it to show up on, let us know. We're happy to do the work for that. And then another production note, I started mentioning last week, we have a sponsor, our first sponsor for the podcast, the fine folks at SysKit, and they are the company that many, many years ago lovingly brought us out the product SP.Kit, which has been just a staple of the SharePoint Administrator's Toolkit. It's a great tool for analyzing your farm and finding out what's there, both in content and in servers, and noticing trends and noticing problems and all of this. It's a great analytical tool for SharePoint farms. So I highly recommend that. You can go to syskit.com and get that. But while you're out there, they've got a bunch of different tools. And as the weeks go by, we'll talk about their different tools. But they have a free tool also. Everybody likes stuff that's free. So you can go out under their little products thing at the top. There's free tools all the way to the right. And there's one called SysKit Pulse. And it's kind of a monitoring thing, a real-time monitoring thing. You can add your SQL servers and your SharePoint servers and all that, and it will tell you what's going on with them. It's a great tool for keeping up on your servers, but more importantly, it's a great tool to have like on your 3rd or 4th monitor. And then when your boss walks by and he sees all the dials going and all the numbers, he will know how busy you are. So it's just a good one to keep up there. So it's good for that. SysKit Pulse, go ahead and check that out. So
speaking of those guys, right? I hear that they have another major announcement that isn't part of production notes, but is actually our first topic. So
yeah. So I've been working with the folks from SysKit for a while. I've known them. I've known Tony, one of the co-founders, for probably 10 years. Good friend of mine, and we've been talking for the last couple of months about maybe me helping them out, doing a little work for them. So today they announced on their blog that I will be coming on as their Chief Evangelist and just kind of helping them, as a guy who's in the field and has been doing SharePoint work for a while and talks to SharePoint administrators a lot, helping them guide where their products go, helping them market it and evaluate, get it out there in a way that makes sense to SharePoint administrators. So they announced that today. I will be blogging about that soon. I was doing that this morning and forgot about that. I got busy. So that's very cool. And it's exciting. But one thing that's really great about it is it's not a full-time gig for me. And so I will continue to be able to stay in the trenches and do the things that give me the expertise that help them make the product better. And that's a really important thing. You get somebody who's very well versed in a topic, and then you get them talking about it and they quit doing the topic. So that is not the case here. So very excited. Those guys write great products. I've told the story 100 times about how I didn't want to like their product. I was very set against not liking their product, and then I used it the first time and have loved it ever since.
Yeah. Well, so congratulations, and more importantly, congratulations. The picture from their announcement does not offend me. So, some of those pictures of you really offend me. So this one was okay. So
I don't like that picture very much. It looks very sterile, very boring. I don't like it, but it is funny. And I can't remember who it was. I was talking to somebody about something you and I are doing, and I can't remember what it was. I'm like, they said they needed a picture of me. I'm like, here's a bunch of pictures of me, and here are the ones that Shane hates. So start looking at those. And if any of the pictures of me that Shane hates look good, use one of those. And if you can't find any of those, then use one of the other ones.
I hate you. I don't know what else to say. So, all right, moving on. Oh no, and next topic's about you too. Goodness gracious, when in this show does it not be about Todd? Did your mom put the lineup here?
I think the more topics about me, the better. I've been a very busy guy lately, and so one of the other things that I'm working on is I'm working with the OneDrive Product Team at Microsoft, and I'm going over a bunch of their online documentation on OneDrive for Business. And it's been a fun project to work on with them. Something that you and I and every other nerd always complains about is how poor documentation is everywhere.
Yep.
And we're talking in the in the product help Microsoft, everybody, product documentation sucks. And part of that is because, the group that writes the documentation is a different group than the people who make the product, and is a different group than the people that use the product. So just writing good documentation is really tough. But now with things moving as quickly as they do in the cloud, they don't have a chance. So for the next couple of months, I'm working with their product team, going through all of the OneDrive for Business blog posts that I can find and that they can find, and finding all the things that are incorrect, old. So there's a lot of blog posts out there that talk about Groove. There's a lot of blog posts out there that have the old sharing UI and how things work, stuff that's just plain wrong. And so that's been a fun project as well, working with those guys. But I bring that up in here not just to talk about me, though that is a nice, little gravy on top. But as listeners to this podcast, we talked a couple of weeks ago about my podcast or my blog post about using OneDrive Sync, for some stuff. I've gotten a lot of feedback on that. There's a lot of folks listening to this podcast that like OneDrive. So I'm requesting of you, if there's any OneDrive documentation online that you don't like, that's wrong or whatever, email me directly. I'm working with the team. I can get some changes made. And then also one of the things that I want to do is find out how well you can find OneDrive documentation. So things like search terms that you try that don't give you the document that you think it could, any of that kind of stuff, shoot me an email, todd@toddclint.com. Let me know. Can't guarantee that every comment that you make will get put in, but it's just part of the bigger picture. And they want your feedback. I asked them if I could do that. I'm like, can I tell everybody I do this? Can I solicit people's responses? And they're like, absolutely, go forth. So I would love to hear some of that.
Yeah, one of the chat room's number one request is they want to add OneDrive for Pleasure to all the docs. So if you can make that an official terminology, I think the chat room will approve.
And you're preaching to the choir. I would love to do that. That is one thing that the OneDrive team and I differ on. I like different terminology for the OneDrive clients than they do. And so that's one of those things where I've tried to slip my suggestions in. They're like, you're doing it again. We're not going to change that. I'm like, but... So that would probably fall into that category.
Yeah, well, I got a customer email just yesterday, right? So it's the people that are migrating from 2010 to 2016. And they're like, we want to remove this link to a OneDrive from all of our sites everywhere. I'm like, all right. First off, do you realize that it just means business, or that just means my sites, not OneDrive? And they're like, no, we did not know that. I'm like, because Microsoft is terrible at naming things. And so then, then I kind of worked them through the options, and it sounds like they're just going to shut it all off completely because it just can't. They can't. Their users can't wrap their head around that OneDrive for Business on-prem is different than the big scary cloud that they're not allowed to get near yet. So they're just going to turn it all off because of poor naming.
Yeah, and I've told the OneDrive team that, and they're aware of it. I mean, they believe that story, but there are other considerations that they feel outweigh it. But yeah, I fight that fight with people all of the time. And I was talking to a customer, a scoping call last week or the week before, and they brought up OneDrive, and I'm like, I hate to do this to you, but you have to sit down. We need to talk about all the different things that the word OneDrive can mean, because they had some very specific stuff and some very specific concerns that were all because of this terminology confusion.
What do you do?
Yeah. So, but again, if you've got any feedback on online OneDrive documentation, and specifically OneDrive for Business, they care a little bit about the OneDrive consumer, but it's really the OneDrive for Business. And I feel like now I'm like a corporate lackey now. I didn't say OneDrive for pleasure. But enough about me. Is there anything else going on?
I think you can make C about you. Go ahead. Give it your best. Make C about you. Figure out how to do this.
So this week, another big thing that was in the news is Microsoft's having their Build conference out at Seattle. I was not able to attend, and so we're not able to give you a good set of announcements for that right now. But we have been reading the things that have been coming out because there's all the prolific bloggers and everything are there. But since I was not there in person and able to try those things, we'll have a bigger wrap up of some of the things that we care about next week. And I've got a list of some of them, but we haven't had a chance to really look into them and research them well enough yet.
Yeah, and this is just back to, so two problems for Todd and I, right? One is Build is developer-y focused, so Todd and I naturally just turn it off. But I think the other big issue is that they just inundate us with news and announcements every hour of every day of our lives. Yeah. I don't even know, like, the 4 things I've got in the notes here. Heck, they might have all been announced at Build, and I just don't realize they were Build announcements because I consume them through a different channel. It really, really just gets exhausting.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I mean, on our end we get exhausted by it, and on Microsoft's end they know we get exhausted by it, and they really struggle to make the big announcements shine through that because that takes away a lot of the big power of keynotes and of conferences because that used to be the thing, oh my goodness, at this Tech Ed they're going to show us the first glimpse of the new version of SharePoint. Now, well, it's Wednesday, we're just going to show you the new version of SharePoint because that's just how things go these days.
Yeah. And that this kind of brings us into, they released a link so you can watch the SharePoint Conference North America's keynote live, right? So you have to go register for it. It's in the show notes here. But so if you're not able to attend the show, boo, then you can at least consume it. And so I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. At least everyone will be able to hear it. But then I saw this other tweet, it was either last night or this morning from someone on the product team about this other, webinar they're going to do that I'm like, man, that really sounds like you're going to steal the keynote's thunder like the week before. I don't understand. When am I supposed to, what is newsworthy? When is newsworthy? I don't understand.
Yeah. So if you can go to the SharePoint conference, and that's in 2 weeks. Oh my God.
Yeah, too late to book.
Yeah. If you can, by all means, go to that. If you can't watch the keynote, because there will be some announcements in there, I'm sure that will be newsworthy and exciting. And then Shane and I are going to do a podcast after the keynote talking about our take from the keynote. So once more, wrapping it up and making it about me. And I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be presented. It will find its way into our regular podcast stream, so on our YouTube channel and my blog and all of that. But that will be kind of the condensed thing. Shane and I, and that was a funny request. They asked us if we would want to do that because they set up the podcasting area and they asked people to sign up for it. And so I saw this list of several days and several slots, and I told them, like, yeah, we'll take that. They're like, which one? All of them. Yeah. Shane and I will just sit there. So like, well, you have to be a little more specific. So we're like, well, we want this one on Wednesday for the weekly podcast, and then we want this, and this. So when they wanted somebody to do the keynote thing, they asked us about it. And Shane and I usually don't go to keynotes because they're really long, and the stuff that Shane and I have very short attention spans, and the stuff that we care about is, very short. And so I think this wrap up that we will do after the keynote will be the Shane and Todd short attention span theater version of the keynote. And it'll be for, folks that have the same interests that we do. It'll be the things that you need.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep that one on topic. But yeah, we're just a lot like Tom and Diane from Family Guy, right? So clearly I'm Tom, you're Diane. But just randomly they appear, off to the side of the screen giving commentary. Right? That'd be us. Like, we just want to permanently be at the table. We'll just sit there all day. We'll talk. A news announcement comes in. We'll stop talking about ourselves and talk about the news announcement, and then just go back to talking about ourselves. It'd be a great day.
I can think of, sounds, as long as people kept bringing us M&Ms and all that, I would be fine. But there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. The SharePoint team could not be trying harder to make SPC a big event, and that will show everywhere. So somebody in the chat room, Eric, mentioned like the two guys from the Muppet Show, Waldorf and Statler, I think were the two guys that sat up in the balcony and just heckled the entire time. I can't imagine a better job. It sounds delightful.
It sounds absolutely delightful. All right, so rolling along. All right, we'll skip that one. So sounds like we're thinking about maybe doing a cord cutting update. I think we're both still cord cutted. Cord,
yeah.
I don't know. And
how do you conjugate that cord? Yeah, and I bring that up. So we did our cord cutting episode like a year ago. I forget when that was. I was going to look it up.
It was Christmas, so 5 months ago.
Was it that recent? Interesting. So I cut the cord a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm thinking. But somebody reached out to me yesterday. They had just watched that episode, and they're like, "Man, that was great. That was you were better than Shane. It was very insightful. It's like, they answered a lot of the questions that I had. They had not cut the cord yet, but they were trying to plan their strategy, and this was the internet thing we were talking about with clean water and all that." But then I was thinking back at the things that we talked about and how much it has all changed just since we recorded that episode. And when we did that episode, we got a lot of feedback on that. That touched a chord with a lot of our audience. So I was just kind of floating this out there. Do we need to revisit that topic? Do we need to do an update to that topic?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Nick, my wife and I were talking about this just a couple nights ago. We watch less TV. I know that was kind of one of the things that we'd said in our research. A lot of people, that was the feedback, was you end up watching less TV after you cut the cord. And we realized that, yeah, we do. Like we used to get up on Saturday morning and turn on, those stupid home shows or whatever. And we have access to all those same things, but for one reason or another, we just don't do it as much. So it has been very truthful for us as we watch less TV.
Yeah, a couple of things about that. So we would do the same thing. You just have, HGTV on in the background all day long, which is horrible for a number of reasons. But over the winter, I signed up I ran a half marathon a couple of weeks ago, and I did that to keep myself motivated over the winter. But I'm too much of a wimp to run outside in the winter. So I ran a lot at the gym. And I suspect that there is some legal authority in place that says if you have a workout place that has TVs at all times, at least one of them must be on HGTV. I can't think of a single time that I walked into that gym, and the gym that I'm at, the treadmills are in the back, and then there's all the elliptical machines and search up. So I can probably see, 70 individual screens. At any one time, I could easily point to one monitor that was running HGTV, Property Brothers, or, any of those, Sell It or Say whatever that one is.
Love It or List It.
There we go. The folks from Waco. At any point, I can just, all right. Yeah, so I feel there must be a law in place. And it was funny because I would start telling my wife about this, and then there would be times where it would be showing on a TV and there wouldn't even be anybody at the equipment. It would just be a lone, elliptical bike, TV on. I'm like, yeah, that's meeting the legal requirements. So I get it. So I've never missed out on the HGTV stuff. But yeah, for us, watching TV has become a lot more deliberate. And it doesn't feel like an assignment now. So one of the things that was great about having a DVR was at any point you could just go to your to-do list or your now showing or whatever your DVR called it, and it was all the things that you wanted to watch. And it was all in one spot, and you could watch it whenever you wanted, and that was great. But then what it ended up being was literally a to-do list. Like you were going there like, oh my God, we've got 8 episodes of Hawaii Five-0 to watch. We need to do that tonight. And you almost felt obligated to watch everything in that list. And we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, well, especially if you have that achiever personality type, right, where you need to check boxes. And so when you're presented with a list of 8 shows, it physically pains you not to go check the box that I've watched each of those 8 shows. And yeah, now, so like we did that with like Modern Family. So now to get that, we have to go get it off ABC On Demand. Well, they don't have all the episodes, so we miss some. And we're just like, meh.
Yeah.
So, but we've been watching on Netflix, Rules of Engagement's kind of become our nighttime, drinking a glass of wine, eating some Cheez-Its, and watching Rules of Engagement's kind of been our show there. It's a pretty good dual show. So
yeah, we watched that when it was live, and it was on ABC, I think. I forget. So it's David Spade, Patrick Warburton, Oliver Hudson. I forget the other girl's name, Megan Price. But I remember when it first came out thinking, this is terrible. Patrick Warburton, he was Putty on Seinfeld. He was the Tick in the live action stuff. I remember thinking he was incredibly poorly cast in that show. And about 3 episodes in, I'm like, he was perfectly cast in this show. Like he made that role. So we loved Rules of Engagement. Such a fun show.
Yeah. Sadly, I identify more with Audrey and whatever his name is on the show.
Yeah. Oliver Hudson's character. Yeah. Or no.
No. Warburton's.
Yeah. I can't remember his name is.
Yes.
Jeff.
Audrey and Jeff, right? I identify a lot more with them. I would like to identify with Jen and Adam, the young, fun couple, but no.
So yeah, and it's funny. So on Netflix also, there's a show called The Ranch. Ashton Kutcher, Danny Masterson, Sam Shepard, Sam Neill. I get them confused.
Oh, the 70s show, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so very much so. But Audrey, the actress that plays Audrey, is on that show. And so The Ranch is like a show like Rules of Engagement, 30-minute comedy, multi-camera kind of thing. But it's on Netflix, so they can swear and they can say whatever. And it is hysterical, but it is so funny seeing that actress playing a much different role, dropping F-bombs. It is. So if you get bored, The Ranch is also a good one.
I will have to check it out. The other one I want to watch, and I didn't realize that this is nothing about the show, so I apologize to listeners. No, not really. I could care less. But one of the things that I realized The West Wing is on there on Netflix. And so Nicola's never watched all of those. So like, I
Oh,
want to figure out like, I'm like, if we're going to do this, we got to like get focused and like watch these, take notes, expand. We should have like a book club around watching The West Wing. And I'm just not ready to make that commitment with my wife yet to watch The West Wing together.
so The West Wing, I watched it when it was on live,
Me
and then
too.
I rewatched it probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it's one of those shows, and maybe it's just because it's recent enough that it hasn't aged out, but I remember it holding up exactly as well as I thought it was. Like there were seminal moments in The West Wing that just sent shivers down my spine, and when I rewatched it, I mean, it just held up so perfectly, and I kind of want to watch it again because it was just such a great cast, so well written, so funny.
That was kind of like Sorkin's like, big moment in the sun. And he got a whole bunch of shows after it that were good, but nothing was
Yeah.
ever The West Wing again.
No, it was perfect. And I think so Josh Molina has a podcast, and I think they go through the episodes of The West Wing or something. I've thought about picking that one up and listening to that. But yeah, The West Wing is if you guys get serious about rewatching that, let me know and I will rewatch it too, and we can discuss the episodes together because it's
There you go. Maybe we should have a book club, right? We should have a Watch the West Wing book club. Chat room, podcast listeners, you want to jump in on this? Leave us a
yep.
note. We'll make this a game. All
Yeah,
right.
and it's fun. So one last thing about The
Yep.
West Wing. A couple of years ago when all the election stuff was in full bore and all that, one of our listeners and a friend of mine that lives outside of the U.S. was hearing about all this stuff, and they were telling me that most of what they heard and knew about the American political system, the second tier stuff, was from watching The West Wing, and so they were asking, how accurate all of this stuff is, and so I was. Comparing and contrasting, but that it is such an iconic thing. They're like, yeah, it's The West Wing.
Yeah. I mean, if it's on TV, it must be true. So.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So what is next? Oh, so the next one is yours, GDPR.
Yeah. Good old GDPR. It's I don't know how else to put it. I don't have like great notes on this, but it's just kind of freaking me out, right? The more that I read about it, I know that like you'd had the conversation. I think we talked about on here last week. About how pretty much if you interact with anyone from Europe in any way, shape, form, or fashion, it's like you've probably, you're probably subject to GDPR now. And the more I think about it, the more shenanigans I see that could be potentially come out of it. I'm starting to think I just want to put a firewall up on my website and my tweets and all that and just be like, sorry, Europe, I can't talk to you anymore because I don't know what my legal obligations are if I even, trade if I even have a simple conversation with you on Twitter now. It sounds like I might be opening myself up to going to jail and paying $20 million in fines. And I don't know, am I over freaked out, or is this GDPR thing really just ridiculous and I should just quit? I don't know.
So I think you are reasonable to be freaked out.
Good.
And I say that might come from a position of ignorance on GDPR. I'm not sure exactly what that all will entail, but I'm freaked out about it a little bit because of the severity of the fines. I mean, it is like lose your house and your business bad if you get fined. And so I need to read up on that a little bit, especially now that I'm going out on my own and doing consulting stuff. And the folks from SysKit, they're in Croatia. And so I've got, correspondences and businesses in Europe, and I need to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do about GDPR.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like and we've talked about this before, right? We need to wait on the first person to get fined and sued for it to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, do I literally? Okay, I do. Like you, I've got some customers that are over there, and I mean, all I really have on them is their names and email addresses and an address, but I feel like that's probably somehow a GDPR violation.
Well, only if they tell you to take it down, and only if you can't prove that you took it down. And I think there's some steps,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure.
right. And if that's the case, all right, I'll delete all your emails. I mean, but then
Yep.
because to read it, and of course there's just all this hype out there because no one actually knows what the law says.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it almost sounds like, it seems like someone could just be, send you an email with all their contact info from the EU and then be like, oh, you're violating my rights, I mean, because you have that now in 7 places because it's in your backups and stuff. And so in no fault of your own, you didn't ask for the information, but because you didn't, send them back a reply with, here's my policy on how I would remove it, here's my policy on how I use it. I mean, it almost sounds like even just them sending you unsolicited stuff could get you in trouble. And
Yeah. I do need to add that a list of my things just to get a small business primer on GDPR and find out what my exposure is.
Figure it out, because right now I'm just thinking about putting the hand out and just saying, go away.
I know a couple of companies that have just said we can't risk it. We can't invest what we need to stay on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Simon is emailing me right now from the UK. But then are they, because they're Brexit? And then one of my friends from one of the Baltic or no, he's from.
I get the Balkans and the Baltics. So you're looking for the Balkan, or the Baltics are up the Balkan.
So the Baltics, right? So one of those, I'm like, does this affect you? He's like, well, no, but I'm technically still a citizen. So yeah, I'm like, ah! So you can't even answer, and you live there.
Yeah. Yep, that is sad. So tell us something good. Tell us about a tweet where you learned something.
So this comes to our boy, Bo Cameron. So one of the things I was trying to do was in a SharePoint modern site, right? So SharePoint Online, the modern pages, which we're all supposed to be using now, but don't have all the functionality of the old ones. Don't get me started. My customer said, hey, I want to have just an old school, calendar, right? And you look at it, it looks like the same as the little cute puppy dog calendars you have on the wall. Here's all 30 days. Here's the things I got going on. He's like, I want that on the page. Yeah, it turns out that out of the box, SharePoint modern sites don't do that. I'm like, oh, this hurts. So we tried the events web part that they give you, which kind of, it shows you like the next 4 upcoming events, and it has these little cute sliders, and it was a big epic fail as well. So it turns out that Bo here, he tweeted me, after I complained on Twitter and said, here's how I would do that. And so he showed me how to use an iframe inside of a HTML web part on a modern page. And here's all the syntax to actually put together and make this solution. So big shout out to him. His solution worked well. The customer's like, yep, that's exactly what I wanted. I was like, you have no idea how much work that was. But
way more than it should have.
Yeah. So now I need to take and probably turn that into a good old-fashioned YouTube video. But then again, we know that SharePoint Online will change 32 seconds later. So why would I even bother with such things?
Maybe it will change in our favor, though. Maybe it will become easier. And
maybe someone told me, or someone had the thought, right? Because no one will tell you anything. But that they feel like the traditional 30-day calendar, it just doesn't work on all devices, right? It's not, what do you call it, where the page just kind of magically resizes and...
Responsive.
Responsive, thank you. It said there's no way to really make those responsive, so that's the reason that a lot of these modern solutions, they're dropped off. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. My client's got a 30-inch monitor. He doesn't need responsive. He needs his calendar in his face, so...
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, and that is something... on the phone, so I'm trying to think of on my phone, when I bring up the calendar, yeah, I can do it in a 30-day thing. Yeah, I can tell you, so I normally have like a 30-day view of my calendar on my phone because I want to see multiple days, but the 7-day thing, is weird. What I wish my phone did is if I hit today, it will take me to today, but I wish if I double tap today, it would go from the 30 view to the 1-day view of today.
Oh, look at you looking for fancy features.
Make that happen, Google. Chop, chop. Speaking of Google.
Yeah, so Google has made one thing happen. They announced this week because, we have Build and then we have whatever Google, is it Google I.O., wherever their conference is.
Competing nerd developer conferences, yeah.
It's so stupid when they do that stuff. But so at their conference today, or this week, they announced that they have an experimental feature going on, that they'll use an AI voice program to actually make calls to get you restaurant reservations.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is interesting. I guess this is a bigger problem for the rest of the world than me, right? I mean, Chick-fil-A always takes me, so I don't need reservations. But, it's just like, all right, so now we have this Google AI assistant that will call and make your reservation. So we know that on the flip side, Microsoft's going to create the AI receiving agent. So then, we'll have the bots talking to the bots about how we can get together to actually go and eat a meal. It just snowballs so fast that I'm like, this is just not ending well. At some point, Google and the bots are going to realize they don't need us and move on. I don't know.
Well, someone still needs to eat those tasty chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A.
Oh, I had one last night. It was delicious. I eat
All
Chick-fil-A several times a week.
all you thought it would be and more.
Yes.
Yeah, so I saw that thing that they were doing, and it was I had two immediate gut visceral reactions. My first one is, oh man, that is cool, and then immediately, oh my God, that's terrifying, because the AI voice and all that was so good. Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm thinking about so I've been using. I'm trying real hard not to say it. She Who Shall Not Be Named, a product from Amazon. I've had one of those for a couple of years now. Used the crap out of it. We use it for a lot of different things, settling arguments at home around the dinner table. I'm always right. But one of the other things we use it a lot for is music. And we've got the music Amazon Music subscription, and I've uploaded a bunch of my own stuff to it, and they're taking that away. They're taking away the ability to stream the stuff that you've uploaded. If that hasn't gone away yet, it's going away. There's various things on that. So part of the reason that I use that device as much as I do is for music, and that's kind of going away. So I've been looking at the Google Home version of that because I've already got it on my phone. I've got a bunch of Chromecasts on my TVs. And so I was watching a bunch of the Google I/O stuff to kind of figure out if I want to jump platforms or not. And so that's an ongoing thing I'm doing right now.
Yeah, you've had her for so long. I think it would be like taking away a family member for you guys.
It would be, but again, just the functionality, and so I've kind of got them back to back. So like, I've got one in the bathroom and I have music and news and stuff going in the morning, but then I've also got my phone. And so I will ask She Who Shall Not Be Named, to play music, and it will say, I can't find it, or it will only have a snippet. And then I'll do the same thing to Google and it will play the song. And I'm like, well, that can only happen like 3 or 4 more times before I just skip that intermediate step of being frustrated with the Amazon device. And I just always do it with the Google device. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Jill knows right before she murders you that she should unplug it so it doesn't record the actual event.
I think Jill understands that if she murders me, that no jury would ever convict her, so it won't matter.
Okay.
I think she thought through those steps well enough, and she's like, I'm good. They'll all be So everybody's.
Yeah. See, we're still weirdos. We unplug ours unless we're actively using it.
I don't. Yeah, and we might use ours more than you guys use yours.
You absolutely do. I mean, we might use ours once a week.
Oh yeah, we use ours multiple times a day for music or whatever, And again, we did this. I remember when this conversation happened. We were at the table. We were talking about something. Somebody didn't know the exact number of some things or the exact capital of something, so we shouted out to her and she solved it. And I'm like, remember when people didn't know everything about everything? Like, remember when people would discuss something and they wouldn't just immediately come to an answer about these kind of things? You'd have these barroom discussions and you couldn't just Google the answer. And
our kids don't, right? Our kids, I mean, that's, Luke, my youngest, probably uses it the most because he's like, hey lady, what is blah? And he'll do the same thing with the phones. He just naturally talks to them like it's just normal. They're one of his friends.
Yeah. So yeah, I might do the Google Home thing, pick those up and try to figure that out. And it's cool. So one of the things, we've got one of the Amazon shows, which has a screen so it can show you those kind of things. And Google doesn't have one of those, but they do have Chromecasts, and you can do things like, I could say, yo Google, play Africa by Leo on YouTube on dining room TV, and poof, it would show up, things like that. So I just need to play with that a little bit.
Very cool. All right. So speaking of playing with things, we're long-winded. So we'll skip that one. So then real quick, an update on, because I made 5 PowerApp videos since the last time we did this thing. I might be obsessed. I made one on Friday night. I made one on Saturday morning. I'm obsessed with videos.
Despite my efforts of breaking YouTube so you couldn't publish them, you still cranked 5 out last week.
I made them, and I just queued them up until you unbroke Google. But yeah, so, I did one on PowerApps and Flow intro. So, right, PowerApps can talk to Microsoft Flow, Flow being the workflow engine, the IFTTT of Microsoft, if you will. And I use that to upload a camera image to SharePoint because that's one of those scenarios that comes up a lot. There's still a lot of missing pieces there, but my video at least gets you through the camera image scenario. And I kind of cover metadata and all that. There was a blog post that one of the Flow guys put out that was like, kind of started this conversation, but in typical, it was missing a bunch of the little pieces, so I kind of went back and did all the little nuggets of getting started with Flow. I made one on audit logging. So a lot of times when people have a Power App, they want to know like who edited it and when they edited the data. So I showed you how to sneak that in behind the scenes on them. I covered the if statement. You were kind enough to help me with this, both trying to explain to people kind of that if mentality, but then also the more complex ways you can use if. So that was a good one. PowerApps Excel auto increment. So no matter how much we ask people not to make Excel the data source of choice for their PowerApps, because it's easy, accessible, because they can. A lot of people are doing it, which is great. I'm all about doing it where you want to do it.
It's a good starting spot, yeah.
Yeah, but now people are starting to say, okay, well, now I need to add an auto increment column to my Excel. I can, I have a database, so I can make primary key, foreign key relationships. I'm like, at this point, you should probably be moving to SQL. But either way, I showed you how to do that. So if you want to build primary keys and foreign keys and all that into Excel, I made a video on that. And then finally, and I don't get enough love for this particular video, because I showed a lot of self-control.
Yeah.
But I made a video that showed off how to do things like spinning images and flashing buttons and scrolling text, a bunch of things that people would ask for very serious solutions. But I made the entire solution in a very 90s, geospaces kind of way. So I recreated the blink tag because that shows you how that works.
I saw that. That was horrific.
I took a smiley face and made it roll, kind of like, I don't know what group likes the spinning heads, but someone does. So I made that. And then I made marquee text go across the screen. I mean, it was straight up a MySpace's, 101 design.
GeoCities, yep.
Yep. So I had a lot of fun with it. I told some cow jokes in the middle. And it was a lot of really important stuff to be learned. I just did it all in a very silly way. The only one I missed, I'm very sad to say, is I should have done the whole working on it, like this site's under construction thing.
The construction worker, yeah.
I should have done that one in there too, but I missed that guy. So anyway, that was my week in PowerApps videos. Lots of fun.
Yeah, you were busy. Yeah. Has good stuff. And Shane has infected me on the PowerApps thing. A buddy of mine was asking me about some stuff he wanted to do the other day. And as soon as my buddy opened his mouth and started describing what he was doing, I was already imagining what the Power App would do for that. And then bounced it off Shane. And Shane's like, yep, that is a great reuse of a Power App. So it's now become everything looks like a Power App now to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so then based off of our conversation, I ended up emailing a guy who works for a professional that sport team and made the same suggestion to him, like, hey, this is the solution you were looking for 5 years ago.
Interesting.
So yeah, I emailed that local sports franchise and told him that this would be what he needed.
Interesting. So yeah, Power Apps is where it's at. Plastics, ball bearings, and Power Apps. That's all the stuff in the future.
There you go. All right. Well, looks like we're ready to do that part where we do the community corner. And before you do the part where you list off 722 events.
You one-upped me this week.
I did.
You stole the community corner and you took it up another level, and I'm feeling the pressure.
I did. So one of the guys I've gotten to know out in the Power Apps community through the forums is a guy named Vivek. Turns out that Vivek lives pretty much where my parents live. So real close to like where I grew up and where I take my kids on a weekly basis to get rid of them to their grandparents.
Oh, I'm so jealous of that, by the way.
Yeah, my neighbor across the street with 5 kids, he hates me for it.
Oh.
So I met up with Vivek. We had lunch one day this week, just talk Power Apps, be nerds, and have a little fun. So just a reminder, right? Don't be afraid to, meeting strangers off the internet. It's not always a bad thing. I mean,
It gets a bad rap sometimes. There are quite a few rotten apples that spoil the whole bunch.
It does, right? I met my wife off the internet. I met Vivek off the internet. I met you in person. Maybe that's where this went wrong. But, so if any local Cincinnati Power Apps people you want to get together, let us know. We'll start making this a thing. But just a reminder to all of you also, make your own community. Go find your own friends out there and, get away from the computer every now and then.
Yeah, and if you're a Power Apps person in Cincinnati, go find Shane. He'll buy you lunch. So But yeah, that's cool. You definitely took the community thing and made it happen. So coming up events. So last week was all the stuff in Nashville. So I heard that all went well. Lots of pictures and all that. June 2nd. So here in 3 weeks or so, SharePoint Saturday Montreal, and then SharePoint Saturday Charlotte on August 11th. Dan will be there, one of our listeners in the chat room. And then SharePoint Saturday New England is October 20th. And then of course, you'll be able to see Shane and I at the SharePoint Conference in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you should make some content for that.
Oh, my God. Yes. But we will be there, and we will be all over. I need to go through my blog post on that and update all the stuff because I'm going to be doing some stuff for the SysKit folks and all those other things. But you can go out to my blog, and I forget what blog post it is, but it will tell you all the places you'll be able to see me at the SharePoint Conference. But as you've probably gathered from listening to the podcast, Shane and I are really personable people. And so if you just see us wandering around, for goodness sakes, don't be shy. Come up and say, hey, introduce yourself. You will be met with a smile and a hug. It will be fun for everybody.
Yeah, hugs are not optional. Let's just be honest.
That is true. That is true. If you don't like hugs, be careful. But that's May 21st through 23rd. Go out to SharePoint Conference NA. I forget what the URL is. SharePoint Conference NA. You can find all the schedule stuff out there. They've got a PDF that has the conference schedule. You can download that. You'll be able to watch the keynote live. Shane and I are also doing an administration day camp on Thursday, so sign up for that. There's still some spaces left. And if you haven't signed up, go up there, sign up, and use the referral code Clint. I'm a couple behind Shane still, so let's even this out. KLINDT, and get yourself in there.
Oh, look at us. We are just rolling along.
And then SPC, or not SPC, SP TechCon in Boston. So that is August 26th and 29th through the 29th. So come out and hang out with us there.
Yeah, that one will be fun, right? Get the all-day PowerApps session, which I'm really looking forward to. So
you will be, yes, like a kid in a candy store, just running around like one of those little yippy dogs, just running around. Yeah. So thanks, everybody. We hit our 51-minute mark. That's how long these things have been going lately. I guess we're a couple minutes short. But if you want to reach out to us, you can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Clint. You can email me, todd@toddclint.com. Anything about the show, any questions, relationship advice, whatever you need, todd@toddclint.com.
Yep. If you want to find out how to meet people on the internet, Shane at PowerApps911 or tweet me at Shane's Cows. Like I said, no harm has come to me yet, so how bad can the internet be?
Yeah. All right, everybody. Join us all next week. Chat room will stick around for a few more minutes and chat with you, but everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Toodaloo.